Welcome to Plugged In, a podcast by OREMC about our co-op, our community, and our shared connections. I'm Michele Hutchins, your Member Communications and Marketing Director at OREMC, and today we're talking about solar. It is estimated by the end of 2021, 5% of all U.S. households will have residential rooftop solar installed. Now, in the context of the entire U.S., that may not seem like a lot. However, it represents record-breaking growth in the industry, according to the Solar Energy Industries Association, such that in 2020, a new solar installation went in every 75 seconds. Now, driving this major growth in solar are several factors, not just on the utility scale project side, but in the residential rooftop side. Environmental issues, which has raised our attention and focus on renewable energies, decreasing costs of solar installations as the cost of photovoltaics have come down significantly over the past 5 years. And then, of course, a number of government initiatives and incentives. So joining me today is Dewayne, or as I know him, Dewey Johns. He's one of our member service representatives and an energy advisor. And Dewey, certainly these national trends have been reflected here in our Georgia and Florida service area. Let's talk a little bit about the increases we've seen in inquiries and installations over the past year and a half.
Yes, and they have increased considerably, actually. Going into 2021, we had in the neighborhood of around 45 to 50 interconnected rooftop solars on Okefenokee system. Now, as of today, we've got 78, and we've been interconnecting since 2016. So it's kind of a large increase percentage-wise, if you will, for 2021. A lot of it is to do is the cost of the panels have come drastically down, and that is the driving factor, I think. There's still some tax credits available federally. The state of Florida, which, we serve Baker County and Nassau County in Florida, and there is still some state tax credits available there as well. So that's where I have seen most of our installs coming, is in our South Georgia territory, as well as our two counties in Florida.
Yes, there are incentives, but do you think that it's the market driving the installations, or the members, our consumers, reaching out or inquiring, or is it some combination of the two?
I think it's a combination of both. I think some of the folks want to lower their energy cost, if you will, and I think that some folks are just wanting to install solar for the green factor. I think there's some misconceptions being sold by some contractors, if you will. Each utility, and in our service territory, we deal with a couple different utilities, Okefenokee, and a couple other competitors, if you will. And each one of us have different approaches to this. And I feel that our members need, or if you're not a member of Okefenokee, you need to reach out to your electric utility provider and figure out what those are, and figure out what may best serve you. I think a lot of our customers don't go into that. They're just going in because they think it's an opportunity to eliminate their light bill or electric bill.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more, because you and I talk fairly regularly about this issue, and we've done a number of communication pieces of late to try to address some of the misconceptions, if you will, or answer questions that nobody really seems to be asking.
Right.
And one of the biggest ones is, I'm putting solar on my roof, I no longer have an Okefenokee bill.
Right. And we seem to deal with that pretty often, and pretty much with every one of our interconnection agreements. And I think a lot of times what happens, Michele, is that our customers' membership that we have, they reach out to a solar contractor,
or vice versa.
Yes, or vice versa. The contractor, I do know that we've had contractors, boots on the ground, if you will, in different parts of our service territories, knocking on doors, trying to sell their product, if
Which
you will.
is
that's perfectly
great.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's, we're not against that, and we're not trying to talk you out of not going.
We're just trying to help you make the right decision.
Make the right decision, and a lot of times, the contractor is telling the customer member that, hey, look here, you don't have to do anything. We'll take care of everything for you, from the application to the application fee. The only thing at the end of this process, all you'll have to do is have a meter changed out by the electric provider, and we will. At that point in time, your electricity, besides a meter charge, if you will, is the only charge you should be receiving from the electric provider. That is false.
Right.
And I wish, and like you said earlier, that we have reached out in several different ways to try to combat this, if you will, and let our membership know that, hey, contact us. We're not telling you not to do it, but to get the correct information, because by installing solar, the odds are you're not going to eliminate your electric bill from Okefenokee.
Right. And the unfortunate thing that seems to be happening is the first time we hear from one of our consumer members who has actually installed residential rooftop solar is a month or two after it's installed, and they're surprised they have an electric bill and that they actually have usage beyond the meter charge, so to speak.
That is correct. And actually at this point in time, that member customer has already signed an interconnection agreement that explains all this. I think a lot of the contractors, if you will, are selling their product as a 1-for-1. And me saying that is if you buy 1 kilowatt hour from Okefenokee and you produce 1 kilowatt hour with your solar system, then that
it's an offset.
It's a wash at the end of the day, and there is no cost to the electric company besides that meter charge.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to make sure you understand what you're getting into, because at Okefenokee, it is not a 1-for-1 thing. What we do is how our net metering works is what you purchase from Okefenokee, you pay for.
Right.
What your system produces in excess and pushes back onto Okefenokee's grid, we will pay you wholesale power cost for.
Correct.
Which at this time is 3 cents. So.
But that's not what the members.
But that's not what
told.
the members. I don't think they're not being either told that, or they're not understanding this.
Understanding the difference.
Between the retail and the wholesale and the 1-for-1, where we're not canceling out what you're buying from Okefenokee, because you still have to pay for what you purchase from Okefenokee. What the solar system's should be doing is reducing the amount of electricity that you're having to purchase from Okefenokee, and that's what I want our members to understand, that if you can eliminate some of your usage, especially in the summer months, where we live here in Southeast Georgia, Northeast Florida, it's, that's our high bills. I mean, it's summertime.
And it brings down the demand.
And it brings down that demand for electricity during those peak hours of the day, if you will.
And so demand, why that's important is when we hit peak demands in the summer, that drives our rates the rest of the year. So if our demand is lower rather than big spikes because of weather, driving, electricity, and air conditioning,
yes,
everybody saves. So there is definitely a benefit.
Yeah, and it's not just a benefit for Okefenokee, it's a benefit for the electric industry
as a whole,
because of the generation portion of that on the generation side of the electricity.
So, Dewey, I think one of the things that you and I talked about really wanting to try to address today was, we know that on social media and on network television, there are definite ads run by different solar contractors. And the two big things that they promote is you're no longer going to have a bill and you can disconnect completely, and you're not going to have any payments for the cost of your installation. And, I'm not going to go into how accurate those are or not, but they're misleading in terms of we need people to ask more questions. And so we're actually trying to address this as, come to us, call us first, call before you install. Let us help guide you through the things that you need to think about before you even sign with a solar contractor, so that you're more aware of what to expect and more knowledgeable on your usage, whether it's a good fit for you, and what you can expect to have as an offset, so to speak.
And if you don't call, at least review our website where the documentation is located, and read through it, because it discusses the way we net meter, the distributed generation, that's a whole package. So at least read through it because you're signing it.
Right.
The contractor's having you sign this, and they're either mailing it in or emailing it in to me. And, I want, when you call me 2 months later, I want to be able to say, you signed this contract, you should have read through it because it states in there kind of what's going on. But we do want to address it. We don't, and we're not wanting to talk you out of not going solar. We just want to make sure that what you're paying for is what you're actually receiving. Because the biggest misconception is what we just talked about just a moment ago is the 1-for-1 credit, if you will,
Right.
And that is not what's happening.
Right. Our members unfortunately get surprised that now they have their solar installment payment.
They have two payments now versus the one.
Yes.
And I've tried to explain that to some different members of ours that now you're paying for energy, if you will, twice.
Yeah. For about anywhere 15 to 20 years.
For 15 to 20 years seems to be the average finance. Most people finance, and it's 0% financing, but still, you're still making a payment for 15 to 20 years. The reliability and the warranty, if you will, has changed on some panels recently, and you do get around 20 years out of them, but you got to take that in account too when you start installing rooftop solar is how long is my panels going to last? Is it going to last me my 20 years that I got it financed? Am I going to have to replace it at 20 years? What's going to happen if we have a hailstorm and we have damage, have a windstorm from a hurricane? What's going to take place? In our documentation, it discusses about your homeowner's insurance that you need to step up or make a phone call to your homeowner's your policy holder and talk to them what you're increasing. And I do. I've talked to a couple of our members that said it actually increased the value of their home by a certain amount. So there's a lot of stuff to be factored in before you do the install. So yeah, just reach out to us. There's a couple of us that can talk to you about it.
Well, let's talk about some of the things, just some of the things that don't even have to do anything with how much you buy or how much you install, but just some basic questions in terms of, do you own your home?
Right.
For someone who owns your home, do you live in a neighborhood with an HOA? Does the HOA allow you to put it on there? If not, what are your other options? And we can talk about that in a minute as well. Are you a renter, but you're interested in solar? Do I have any options? Again, we can talk about that in a minute. But, do you own your home? How old is your roof? And why is roof age such an important factor before installing?
Yes, that's the weight of what you're adding to the roof. And I've talked to different contractors about and around our territory, and you start talking about a shingled roof and your house is 15 years old, now you're installing solar. I mean, even if your roof's in good shape, within the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to have to replace the shingles.
So do you do that before the solar?
Do you do it before you solar, or now once I do get ready, or if I have a hurricane and where we live, which is not unexpected sometimes during the right time of the year, if you will, and if you have that and you have roof damage, now you got to take the panels off, to fix your roof, to reinstall your shingles or whatever. So a lot of things, and I do know if you got properties that your house is sitting on. I know some of our members have decided to do yard mounts, if you will, on podiums or whatever, structures. That's the better word to use there. Structures out in their yard or out in the edge of a field or something like that. And it's still the same thing. But it's a cost thing. You got to, and it's the matter of if it's code worthy, hurricane, because you got to meet all these code requirements. And that's another thing in each county you live in our territory, you have to have proper permitting before we accept interconnection from the proper entity. So that's another thing that some of them, because they don't think they're really doing electrical work. So why should I have to do a permit?
And every county's different.
And every county and every city, because different counties and cities have their own entities of their permitting and their code enforcement. So reach out to whoever that is, and find out what they're asking. But you are changing the electrical system in your house just because you're not installing another room per se, but you are installing something that's going to change the electricity flowing into your house. So you do have to have a new permit. So reach out to your entities, and whichever entity is where you live, the city or the county permitting code office, and find out what they require as well. That's another thing that some of our members do not realize until it's time, if you will, to do the meter install, and we're not allowed in these counties and cities to do meter changes without proper permitting. It's not a okey-finokie thing. It is a county city requirement code, if you will, that we have to abide by to do the installs.
Now, this is going to sound sort of elementary, but one of the other things that you need to think about, you can't just put solar system on your house and then be completely shaded by trees.
That's correct.
I mean, it seems kind of like a silly question on one hand, but it is something you have to consider. Correct? You know, how much
shade? What time of the day you're going to be shaded, and you know how production is how it's going to affect the production of your system. Because if you're installing a system in the shade, you're only getting 75% production because of shaded areas on your system. Then, to me, that you've wasted money,
right?
If you will. Okefenokee doesn't really get into the shading part of it. There's a lot of web pages and websites that you can go on that actually it's a Google Earth picture, if you will, and that you kind of just put where you want the solar on your house, and it kind of shows you and takes an aerial photo, and it kind of gives you a great idea, at least to start with. Couple of these sites are free, I know. Don't cost you anything, so you can just take a quick look at it, and it just pulls your house up, enter your address, and it pulls it up, and then you tell it kind of what you want. And
so you can see what you might be
Yes, it gives you an
into.
idea, if you will. And then, of course, we don't get into that. We let a solar contractor, they're the pros at this. They're the ones that should be telling you.
But it is a question that the member consumers should consider and should be asking.
Because if you're a fully treed lawn or yard properties, and you may have to cut some trees to get 100% productivity out of your system.
Well, and let's talk about that too, because again, it seems a bit elementary. If the sun isn't shining, you're not going to have solar production. But I think sometimes that does get forgotten. They don't just produce energy because they're on your roof. You do have to have sunshine.
You do. It's there's a lot of factors in that. Believe it or not, a lot of folks go into this with the panels thinking if July in southeast Georgia, northeast Florida, when it's 97 degrees with a real feel of 103, they're thinking, man, I'm getting some production out of my panels. But in all honesty, that heat is bad for solar. The perfect times for solar production is in the spring when it's sunny outside and the actual temperature is very mild, if you will. Same way in the fall when the highs are only in the 80s and the sun's shining and there's no clouds. That's the production days, if you will. Heat's not good for anything electrical.
Gotcha.
So it's not the perfect thing in July and August. Yes, it works, but it's not at 100% production at those times. You're probably going to be looking at about a 90% production, 85 to 90% production out of your panels in the heat, but just because it's so hot.
Yeah.
And you lose some of that production through the heat, if you will.
Well, and then the other side of the coin is if it's a cloudy day or if it's a rainy day, then it's diminished significantly more or to zero, obviously.
Right.
So then this gets back to why you continue to be connected to Okefenokee for your backup power, if you will.
Yes.
So that, when that solar isn't producing, you don't notice the difference.
That is correct. And a lot of our members think that hey, well, I can just go off grid. And and you can, but your lifestyle changes.
Yeah, that's bigger than just putting.
That's bigger than just me putting a 6 kW solar system on my roof or out in my yard. Those things change. Your lifestyle has to change. The air conditioning system in your house. There's an old CEO, general manager at one of the co-ops in the state of Georgia. He had a quote that says, "Sunshine is free, solar is not." And that is I stop and think about that because that is the truth. There's all the sunshine out there, But to have your solar system work, you have to have some form of electricity to make that inverter, which changes that DC power, which is what solar is, into AC power that works
that runs in the house.
That runs in the house. So you got to have a small amount of electricity to even make that happen, whether that be from electric utility, such as Okefenokee, a battery, or a generator. But you have to have some source of electricity to make that work. So that's why when your lights go out during a storm, we have storm trouble. If you don't have battery backup, or if you don't have a backup generator, then your solar's not working. So you can have, this afternoon a thunderstorm come in and the lights go out. If you don't have an alternative source of electricity to power your inverter, then you're still not going to have any electricity, even though the sun's back out shining.
Sure.
So there's a little bit of misconception on that too, that folks think when they install it, they still have electricity in a storm, and that's not actually always the truth. There's some things that have to factor in and weigh in on that.
Well, and so one of the other big things, and we talked about what's driving the national trends. It's increased awareness and focus on renewables, the lower costs, government initiatives. But I mean, that's really a good question that every consumer member who's considering solar really should ask themselves. What is my goal of having solar? Am I wanting to go green? Am I wanting to reduce my carbon footprint? Or am I looking to reduce my usage and reduce my costs? And it's a key question that you should ask yourself.
And it is, and it's one of those costs, and none of us sit here and say what the electric rate charge is going to be moving forward. That's a thing that changes regularly. Now we do know that the sun will continue to shine, and you can make electricity.
We're banking on that.
We're banking on that. That's correct. And but when you get to the point of thinking that this is a solution, I don't think this is always the right thought process we need to take in on solar. I have no problem with solar. Okefenokee has no problems with solar. But the big cost on solar as a major production, if you will, for generation source, if you will, for electricity is the storage capacities.
Right.
Because we don't have that. And that cost, when you start getting into batteries on the storage side of the solar production, that's where the cost is associated. Not saying those aren't going to change in years to come,
right,
as technology advances, but at this point in time, it's not there. But Okefenokee itself, part of our generation portfolio is solar.
Absolutely.
We have that in our we actually have 3 solar fields, farms that we own as a company, Okefenokee. One in West Glen on Highway 82, and one at our Kingsland office off Kinlaw Road, and one at our Hilliard office at Old Dixie Highway there in Hilliard, Florida.
Right.
That we installed. So we believe in it as well. We trust in it, and we know it's an option as a generation provider. But we also understand that is, we can't rely on that 24/7 to be our provider, our generation provider, if you will. We have to have other options.
Sure. And just to kind of go into a little bit more, I mean, we buy power, wholesale power.
We do.
We have a mix of power, and renewables are part of what we buy. And a lot of it is solar, and it's coming because we're a member, just like we're a cooperative, we're a member of Green Power EMC here in Georgia that procures all of the renewables that the Georgia electric co-ops use. And we're not trying to exclude Florida, but some of that power is delivered through Georgia.
Right.
So, so it is something that we're a part of and is part of our energy mix because, and Georgia is about I think Florida, I read somewhere, is the number 1 state in the Southeast for the installation of utility scale solar, and Georgia's right behind it. So, it's growing rapidly.
Right, yeah.
But you talked about our own solar fields that we have, which is all part of our cooperative solar program. So we talked a little bit earlier about whether you're a renter or whether you're part of an HOA that may or may not be favorable to you installing your own rooftop panels, there is another option, and that is our cooperative solar program, which enables you to buy blocks of energy from these 3 solar fields that Dewey was talking about. And so you buy blocks of power that, depending on the weather, I believe it's like 150 to 250 kilowatt hours a month.
You can get out of one block of energy.
And so you buy a subscription at $20 a month. That entitles you to these blocks of energy that then, when it's time for your bill, it is applied to your overall bill and deducted.
Yes, that is correct. And it's right now, you're looking at about a net number, about a $6 or $7 a month increase per block on your bill.
Gotcha.
It's not a break-even thing at this point in time, just because of the prices of wholesale power.
Sure.
But as those wholesale power costs continue to climb, if you will, and we don't know when those numbers are coming, but looking at the world, and inflation is one of those things that's taking place as we speak, and we can only assume that the same thing is going to happen at the energy in the energy market, if you will. But the cooperative solar, the blocks we have, that is a fixed cost. That cost will never change. So when you buy into that, as long as you're still a member of Okefenokee and you still subscribe to your 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 blocks, then that number will be the same no matter what our other rates do moving forward.
Right. And it's just an option. As
you
said,
an option.
It's not necessarily a saver, but what is your solar goals? Do you want to be green?
And we were talking about that 15, 16-year-old roof.
Right.
And here's an option. Well, I don't really want to change my roof right now or replace shingles. But I do want to reduce my carbon footprint. What's an option for me? That's an option. And if you'll call in, we can run the numbers on your usage pattern for the last 12 months and kind of give you an idea of what it's going to cost you for 1 block or 4 blocks. We try to hold it to a residential account to about a 4 block max purchase. Some cases we've allowed 6 or 7 blocks. Kind of depends on how much usage you use in your home, but we try to hold it about 4 blocks for a residential account. And but we can run the numbers on that and look at your usage patterns, and kind of give you an idea what the cooperative solar will cost you for a monthly fee as well as a yearly thing, and kind of give you an idea if you're going to break even at the end of the year, if it's going to cost you a little bit more at the end of the year, if you're going to save money. So yeah, just reach out. Our customer service ladies up front be more than happy to help you with that. If you have any more in-depth questions, you can reach out to me or my colleague Royce, and we'll be more than happy to answer those for you.
So this has kind of been an overview of solar in all senses of the word, with our biggest message being, if you're considering solar, give us a call. Reach out to us. Dewey is here to help you answer the questions that you need to consider before you go so far as, signing a contract, so that you're understanding what your benefits are going to be, what your usage is going to be, what size system we're suggesting you should have, so that when you have that conversation with your solar contractor, you're educated as well.
Right. And you know the whole facts, because when that contractor's, maybe if he's trying to tell you it's a 1-for-1 thing, you can say, well, no, I've done talk with my utility provider and they're telling me it's not what it is. And at that point, that may change the size of the system if you decide to still go with a solar system. You may want to decrease or increase the size of your system at that point, once you find out what actually is going to be taking place from Okefenokee and once you sign that interconnection.
So there are a number of ways to reach out. You can call us at 800-262-5131. You can email us at customer.service@oremc.com, and that email will get funneled to the appropriate person. Or you can spend a little time online and visit us at oremc.com, and Energy Services will give you a rundown on rooftop solar, cooperative solar, and everything you need to know in between.
And it has my email address on there, as well as my extension number. If you want to call direct to me, just shoot me an email, leave me a voicemail. I'll be more than happy to get back in touch with you and discuss the options and kind of where you're looking at, what you're looking at if you decide to go this route.
So Dewey, I think that's about the scope of the topic, but the bottom line is we're here to help. So let us help. Let us be your energy advisor.
Sounds great. Thank you, Michele.